There are 37 defenders in Rainbow Six Siege, and 16 ranked maps that each of them are good at. So in today's video, I'll be telling you the best map for every single operator in Siege. Now the first operator I'll be going over is Smoke. Smoke is best on maps where there's a lot of sight setup involved. This would naturally make his primary shotgun more useful, but also if he's running a shotgun SMG combo, he'd naturally be good on more close quarters maps. Also having smoke grenades to be able to kill people who are more close quarters is more valuable, so him being on smaller maps makes sense, especially compared to larger maps where his smokes aren't going to get as much value. So if Smoke needs to be on a small map that requires a lot of utility and sight setup, then Smoke's best map is actually Oregon. Smoke is a really good operator, so there's not really a single map that he's bad on necessarily, but Oregon I think he specializes in the most. First of all, you have all the sight setup that needs to be done every single site you go, like I was talking about earlier. You have feet holes that need to be made, rotates that need to be made, etc. But also Smoke brings either barbed wire or proximity alarms, which is very nice on Oregon because everybody has to tunnel into just a few places to be able to hit the site, so bringing barbed wire for damage or for information is really nice. Also, the rooms are quite small. Take Trophy for example, or even a small hallway like top main stairs. If you deploy a smoke grenade in the middle of this room, it's going to engulf the entire room. Whereas on a map like Bank, that wouldn't necessarily be the case, which is why Oregon is actually Smoke's best map. Speaking of SAS operators though, let's go over the next operator, which is Mute. Now, Mute specializes on maps that are naturally good for droning, whether it be because there's just a lot of drone holes or good drone routes or places to hide your drones in general. A map where droning is important, Mute is going to naturally be better. Also, for the same reason as Smoke, Mute having a shotgun makes him better on maps where there's a lot of sight setup involved. And a map that has a lot of good drone routes and necessary sight setup is Chalet. Like I said, there's a lot of sight setup. Just for the top floor alone, you have to make a bunch of head holes. You have to make not one, but two different rotates, or a third optionally as well. You have feet holes here to make. And then any holes that you want for library, you also have to make, but that's just for one site. If I take you to a site like kitchen and dining, you'll see just how important site setup is. You have a rotate right here. You have head holes for the trophy wall, head holes for the solar wall, head holes for the dining wall, head holes next to your rotate, maybe even head holes to watch main, maybe even head holes to watch your west main, and then you have all of the upstairs site setup to do, plus you have to pop the hatch, and you have to make rotates upstairs like that one for your teammates. So there's a lot of sight setup here. Not to mention the actual drone routes on this map. As you can see, there's a drone hole here that leads from directly outside to the inside. There's a drone hole right here that does the exact same thing. People can drone from the 45 hall, so you need a mute jammer there as well. But also, people love to use deployable shields for this map. If you have a deployable shield right here for top blue, and you're trying to counter a Flores, having a mute jammer for that shield is pretty nice. And for that reason, and many others, I think Chalet is Mute's best map. Somebody else that is great at setting up site is Castle. Castle specializes mainly on maps where you need to extend the bomb site to be able to hold more ground. This is going to be important on pretty much any map, but especially important on maps that have a lot of soft walls where you need the extra added cover of a castle barricade. Also, a map where having proximity alarms next to you and shotgun to be able to set up site is pretty important, which is why Castle's best map is actually going to be Border. One of the things that sucks about defending pretty much anywhere on this map is that attackers can get control of rooms very easily, making it pretty hard to defend past a minute 30 into the round. But if you have good castle strats that can help you hold rooms, then it makes holding some of these rooms a lot easier. Especially in ranked when nobody knows how to counter what you're doing, having angles like this with castle barricades for cover can really trip them up. And these crazy castle strats that I'm showing you right now can be used for every single bomb site on this map. Every single one. I guarantee you if you look it up, there is a great castle strat online for it because people absolutely love castle on this map, which is why the best map for castle is Border. But let's move on to the other FBI operator on this list, which is Pulse. Pulse specializes in naturally more compact maps. Not necessarily small maps, but maps where rooms are really compact and hallways are really tight, so that he's easily able to see 4 people below as there isn't much room for them to run away from his nitro cell. Also, maps where you need to play below to hold a site on multiple different sites and it be viable are naturally going to be good Pulse maps, which is why the best map for Pulse is going to be Consulate. Now, the thing about Consulate is every single site that you can play, Pulse can actually play below or above. above and it be viable. If you want to play the top floor, Pulse can play in Exhibition or Piano and easily be able to nitro people. If you want to play in Exhibition, Pulse can easily be in the basement and play below that as well. Even if you're playing the split site, Pulse can play in basement in the basement split site and play below that for information. There's just a lot of things that you can do with Pulse on Consulate for every single site, and it makes sense and get you a free nitro kill in the process. An operator much less about their utility, though, is going to be Doc. Because Doc is naturally less more about his utility, being on a map where utility is less necessary is going to be good for him, because he can focus on healing and getting kills with his ACOG on his MP5. Which is why the best map for Doc is, of course, Coastline. On Coastline, having somebody with a DMR or Glaz or a Kali in Ruins is very common, so having an ACOG to be able to peek them and kill them is pretty nice. Even if you're down by one of these people, you can easily stim yourself back up and it be cool. Because people are naturally taking more gunfights on a gunfight-focused map, having Doc to be able to heal your teammates who are taking gunfights is pretty cool as well, which is why this is no-brainer his best map. Somebody who is just like Doc is the next operator, Rook. Rook is literally the exact same as Doc, in which you're going to have people taking gunfights, so you want to give them armor to take those gunfights, so you want an operator that's good on a map for taking gunfights, which is why, just like Doc, the best map for Rook is also going to be Coastline. Again, you have an ACOG to contest people and take gunfights, but also having Rook armor to give your teammates health who are probably going to be swinging everything, because, let's be honest, they're your teammates. It's pretty nice to have. You also have impact grenades as well if people are rushing at you with shield, which happens a lot on Coastline, or maybe just to make yourself some rotates on the map, because God forbid your teammates do anything on this map other than you, which is why Rook, to nobody's surprise, has his best map as Coastline. But let's move on from Coastline and talk about somebody else who actually takes a bit more strategy, and that operator is Kapkan. Kapkan is naturally going to specialize on a map with a lot of doorways and not a lot of hallways that you can't put Kapkans on. If everybody has to funnel in on a map with a lot of doorways, then naturally you're going to get more kills as Kapkan. He's also going to be good on a map with a lot less bright colors so that his traps can actually blend in a bit more, which is why his best map is not what you might think. It's actually Villa. Now, why is Kapkan so good on Villa? Well, like I said, everywhere you have to go, attackers have to funnel into some obscure doorway to get there. You might be thinking, well, isn't that every map? Not really. Sometimes attackers can come in through a barricade or a door or really anything, and they'll be able to immediately walk into a hallway or a room that doesn't have a doorway where Kapkan traps are. But on Villa, that's not the case for any room. A lot of the doors on Villa are also colored brown. The entire map is kind of colored brown, which makes Kapkan traps blend in just a little bit more than they would on other maps. Sometimes you'll even find doorways like the vault doorways, where people don't really expect Kapkan traps to be able to be placed, but you can actually place them on that doorway. So you can catch a lot of people by surprise on Villa with Kapkan, which is why by far I think this is his best map. Moving on to his Russian brother though, let's talk about Tachanka. Now Tachanka is a pretty bad operator, so pinpointing one map where he's really good is naturally, for me, just going to come down to a map where I have the most amount of strats for Tachanka that are viable. Tachanka specializes in being the operator that has the most long-range effective area denial, meaning a map with very long hallways is going to be good for him. Also, a map with a lot of site setup is going to be good for Tachanka as well if you're using the LMG, but I honestly don't recommend it, which is why having a bigger map where you can use the ACOG on his SMG is even better. Maps where you need area denial in general, especially late-round area denial, are naturally going to be good for him as well, which is why I personally think that Tachanka's best map is actually Bank. Now, I can think of a million different Tachanka lineups that I know just for the basement site. People love to plant in this corner right here to get the bomb down, as it's really the safest place you can do so. So having, like, let's say a shield on this doorway right here and being able to just bounce your Tachankas off the roof with absolutely no harm to you is pretty nice, because as you can see, I can land fire right there, I can even peek the right and do the same exact thing, and then I have cover to be able to reload my canisters. You'll also pretty commonly see a rotate right here. I can't really make it obviously because I'm on Tachanka, but you get the idea. You can also shoot flames at that sign right there and make them fall in the default spot to be able to deny the default plant. There's usually holes right here that you can do the same exact thing. You can even just be prone on this doorway and do it. You can be behind the bomb chassis. You can do it through both of these rotates here, and that's just for one plant, right? You can can go back to the upstairs site. And you have tons of cover to be able to deny the default plant in here behind the desk or on the wall. Because this is a long-range map, again, Tachanka is going to shine because you can shoot these things super, super far. So having Tachanka fire in that hallway all the way from elevator is a good strat. Commonly in higher elo, you'll see a shield right here to deny square. So having Tachanka fire so they can't, you know, rush into janitors is pretty good. You can just waste a lot of time because of how open the hallways are in this map and how many walls and ceilings you can bounce stuff off of, which makes Tachanka actually kind of viable if you have certain strategies with him on this map. Honestly, I don't really think he's viable in much of anywhere because of how bad he is, which is not at all the case for this next operator, who is Frost. Now, Frost is going to be good on a map where you can't upside down rappel on the windows and shoot the frost mats. There aren't a lot of maps where this is actually possible, but there are a few where there's almost no windows that you can upside down rappel on. She's also going to be good on maps with a lot of site setup, and she's going to be good on maps where deployable shields are like gold there. The one map that fits this description is Chalet. Now, just coming into library alone, as you can see, because there's a balcony ceiling right here, placing a frost mat under this window makes it invincible, as people can't directly actually upside down rappel on the physical window, meaning that they can't shoot this frost mat. The same thing can be said for the small library window. The K9 double window as well has the same exact advantage. The gaming double window as well, you get the idea. Most of the windows here you can't upside down rappel on, but that's not the only thing that makes Frost good here. Let's say you're playing bar gaming. Having a hatch open here and playing inside of library is a really common thing. Something else that's common in higher elo is putting a deployable shield with ADSs right here, and Frost can do that, as well as putting frost mats under her windows and having an ACOG she can use to shoot anybody pushing her double door. Not to mention the amount of site setup you need to do on this map. We already talked about that earlier with Mute, so I won't go over it again, but you get the idea. Chalet is Frost's best map. Someone who does just as well on this map is Valkyrie, but I'm not saying that Chalet is Valkyrie's best map. Valkyrie is going to be good on maps where you have a lot of open space that you can hide Valkyrie cameras. She's going to be better on bigger maps as well, that way her cameras can cover more footage effectively and give more information to you and your team. I'm sure you saw this coming, but the best map for Valkyrie, based off of that description, hands down, is Bank. Now, just in lobby of Bank alone, there's like 30 different places that you can hide Valkyrie cameras. In the plants, on the chandeliers, on the pillars, on the floor, on the roof. You can even put some on like the top of chandeliers over here. It's absolutely crazy. And the best part about these cameras is they end up seeing a lot, and because it covers so much ground, you get a lot of information no matter what site you're on with these cameras. And that's just for one room. There's rooms like Square that have even more placements, and you have things like Garage and Basement of Bank too, which is why this is by far Valkyrie's best map, because there's just so many places and so much open area that you can hide your Valkyrie cameras. Speaking of hiding, the next operator we'll be going over is Caveira. Now, the more confusing and big the map is, naturally Cav is going to have an advantage. Cav is a roamer after all, so the more time that they have to spend roaming, the better Cav is going to be at doing her job, and the bigger the map that it is, the more time she's going to be able to waste. Not only this, but if you don't know the map, it's going to make it a lot harder to clear the Cav and a lot more dangerous because she's going to know the flank routes. Which is why by far her best map is actually Lair. Now, I know a lot of people have no idea how Lair works. I mean, even I play this game almost every single day for a career, and the basement site still confuses me. So Cav on a map like Lair, where there's so many little hiding spots like this one right here, or little vault locations like this one, are just super good for Cav players. You're able to waste a lot of time, confuse the hell out of the enemy, and get the upper hand a lot of the times because nobody knows this map. Which is why it's very easy for me to say that this is by far Cav's best map in the entire game. Another map operator combo that I'm absolutely certain of is the map that is best for our next operator, Echo. Echo is going to be good on a map where plants happen a lot more than average. He's also going to be good on longer ranged maps with big hallways and open areas so that his cameras can see more, just like Valkyrie. He's also going to be good on maps with a lot of hatches that he can boost through to be able to go to different floors or even outside the building, and he's going to be good for maps that have a lot of cover and lineups for Echo. A map that perfectly fits this description is Cafe. You might be surprised that I didn't say Bank, and if you want to say Bank, honestly, that's fair, but I just have so many lineups on Cafe and little dressers and nooks and crannies that you can hide Echo cams that it would be a mistake not to say that this is Echo's best map. I mean, even in just like this room in general, I can think of 4 different lineups for Echo. You have one you can put on top of the cigar box. This camera can watch anybody coming down red. In either of these dressers, you can hide Echo cameras and pop them out whenever you need to go up, get a free stun, and swing people off of them. You can hide it in this wine dresser as well. You can hide it behind this shelf, and that's just for one room. There's also this big pillar lobby area. hiding drones in things like this bookcases and popping them out later to kill anybody in pillar, or using the perfect ceiling height to be able to actually go to the 3rd floor, to actually go all the way up to the 3rd floor and stun people and then just go back down to safety is pretty nice too. From here you can deny the default plant that's usually in Shaiko, or you can leave and escape under this shelf here. There's just so many little hiding spots that if you really think about it, like the bookshelf right there, you can hide it in so many different places. I'm finding new ones as I make the video. Cafe just has so many hiding spots that you can have echo cameras. It's absolutely crazy. If hatches are open too, you can actually hop these echo cameras outside the hatch to get info on anybody on the roof and then just hop them back down and come back inside. There's just crazy places with echo on this map. It has to be Echo's best map by far. It's just absolutely insane. Another map placement that I'm actually pretty passionate about is the best map for Mira. Now, because Mira is naturally an operator that gets better the more site setup and strats that you have with her, she's going to be good on a map with a lot of site setup and strats. Maps like Clubhouse, Chalet, Theme Park, things of that nature, I'm sure are popping up in your head, but there's one in particular that Mira is the best on that you can use her for every single site. And that is Chalet. Like I said with Mutant Frost, having a shotgun for site setup is naturally going to make you pretty good on this map, and Mira brings that. She also makes very tough positions to attack, like the stock room when you're playing games, and she makes them even harder to attack, which is why I think Mira has a special place in my heart for this map. But also, there's just a lot of lineups here. You have a really good Mira strat for stock, you have good Miras for the kitchen and dining bomb site as well, and she's even useful for sites like the basement to watch the main breach that you need to heavily contest, which is why Chalet is the best map for Mira. Speaking of information operators, let's go over the next op on this list, which is Legion. Legion's going to be good on a map with 2 criteria specifically. 1, a map that most people don't really know or aren't used to the attacking pushes yet. And 2, a very close quarters and small map that you need mines on to be able to control more space. The perfect map that I think fits this criteria is actually Emerald Plains. Emerald Plains is pretty difficult to defend, as it's kind of a gunfight map like Coastline, but attackers get a lot of control immediately out the gate from spawn, with doorways like this or the many windows that lead onto the north side of the map. Having a Legion to not only 1, tell you where exactly they're pushing from the many angles that they can push, but 2, it tells you when they're pushing, so you know when you can go for a swing that you need in order to actually have the advantage on defense again. Anywhere that you hold on this map, unfortunately, has a flank to it, which makes Legion even more powerful. If I want to hold green hallway and I want to hold this door, I have to worry about behind me on the green stairs. With 2 or more Legion mines there and some more around me, I know that wherever I go, I'm going to be safe with Legion no matter what the site is, which is why I think this is one of, if not his best map in the entire game. Speaking of trap information operators, let's go over somebody that I think is a bit underrated right now, and that is Ela. The reason I think Ela is underrated is because now that shields have been nerfed and Blackbeard is starting to be played a lot, Ela as a natural Blackbeard counter can actually be pretty useful. So I think knowing her best map is something you should be looking for. Her best map is going to be somewhere where people have to funnel in a lot. A close range map where information isn't necessarily as important as having utility that can slow the attackers down. A map that I think perfectly represents this for Ela, and a map where countering shields is almost a necessity on the defense, is the map Oregon. There's very little places that people can push in to push this bomb site. There's White Stairs, maybe the big window, and attic if they breach it, or trophy. Most of the times, the most common places would be Trophy or White Stairs, and all you need for that is 2 Ela mines, 1 right there and 1 right there. Deployable shields are also pretty common for all of the sites here, whether it be for the top floor or from the bottom floor as well. I think because of the nature of how close quarters and funneled this map is for attackers, as well as the meta of shields that usually comes in through elbow or, for the top floor as well, plus she has a shield, and she has a really good weapon for this map specifically, I think Ela's best map, by 0 doubt in my mind, is Oregon. A map operator combo that I have even less doubts about, though, is the map that I've chosen for the next operator, who is Vigil. Vigil's going to be better on more open-ended maps, because if a drone is droning out a room, but a really, really big room, and you activate your scanner, he's going to have very inaccurate information. Whereas if he was droning a map with really small rooms, and he knew you were in the room he was in, he'd be easily able to pinpoint you better. So a map with a lot of open-ended rooms that people need to drone a lot, where roaming is very good, is of course Bank. I mean, just imagine for a second, if an attacker is trying to drone you out as Vigil in lobby and you activate your ability, when he sees Vigil scans, that means you could be anywhere in lobby. And if he's droning it, chances are he already probably knew you were there, so that information actually gives him nothing. You could be in a corner of lobby, you could be in bottom lobby, you could be in lone, you could be top banana in the hallway, you could be behind the lounge desk. It doesn't matter. Bank is full of these really open-ended, very wide, very big rooms that Vigil naturally specializes in, because if they get information, it isn't really accurate information, which is why Vigil's best map is actually Bank. Another operator great for open-ended maps is the next operator on this list, which is Alibi. Alibi is going to be good on a map where you can put her clones behind cover, and the cover enables her clone's feet to not get shot. Not only this, but if you're pairing it up with observation blockers, having a map where observation blockers are a lot more useful makes Alibi a lot more useful. Also, putting Alibi clones on windows is pretty nice. So a map with a lot of windows that you can't upside down rappel on is going to be good. Which is why, of course, by no surprise, Alibi's best map is actually Chalet. Again, obviously you have windows that can't shoot the clones of the Alibi feet, meaning that no matter what, unless they have a grenade to clear this clone, they're going to 100% have to hop into this clone, giving you free pings for an easy swing. That's item number one. But one thing that's pretty underrated about Alibi is that if you bring observation blockers like this, you could put Alibi clones behind the observation blockers and they can't drone it out, even if they have 30 drones somewhere in lobby hiding from you. There's also tons of places on the map where you have cover for your Alibi clones, like the half wall upstairs or the wine wall right here downstairs. Either way, Alibi clones have a lot of cover on this map specifically that they don't on other maps, making Chalet obviously Alibi's best map in the game. But let's move over to the operator that came out when Alibi did, and that is Maestro. Maestro is going to be good on maps where you have a lot of camera lineups for that operator. There are certain maps where there's a lot more than others, but also Maestro is going to be good on maps where planting is pretty common. A map that has both of those things in common is, for the same reasons as Echo, actually Cafe. On Cafe, you have a lot of Maestro cam lineups, like this one to deny the default plant, or this one to do the exact same thing while also watching your white stairs. And that's just for one site. For every single site on this map, there are tons of crazy Maestro camera lineups. For this reason alone, and for the fact that people love to plant on Cafe, I had to make this Maestro's best map because truthfully, it is. Now that one was honestly pretty debatable, but a map that is much less debatable is the map that I've chosen for the next operator, which is Clash. Clash thrives on maps that are really close and personal, that don't have long or broad hallways. She also is really good on smaller maps because smaller maps, attackers have a lot of advantages because they're able to immediately get to the bomb site out of spawn. A map that you need to hold space, a smaller map, and one that is much more close and personal is a perfect map for Clash, and the only map I can think of when describing a perfect map for Clash is Oregon. There's plenty of reasons why Clash is super good on Oregon, but one of the main few is that where an attacker is pushing from, there typically isn't really a flank route they can use to get behind you, which is Clash's biggest weakness. For example, if I'm playing Elbow on Oregon as Clash trying to shock people, enemies can't really get behind me because behind me is sight. Sure, they can get to white and I guess go to the white door, but if they're already there, I should know about it, so it's not really as big of an issue. Whereas on a map like Border, behind you could be archives if you're in armory, and you might get shot from the back. Border doesn't really have this issue on a lot of their sites. Also, like I said earlier, this map has an issue where attackers can get right next to the site, aka barrels, for absolutely free immediately, which means they can get to site very quickly. So having an operator that can slow them down is really nice, which is why I think this is Clash's best map. Dude, I think I bit the inside of my cheek because it is hurting right now. Now, Clash is only really good for specific maps. An operator that can pretty much go on any map, though, is the next operator, which is Cade. Cade can be played on almost every single map, but there is one map where Cade is a lot more useful and a lot more used than any other map in the game. Is Clubhouse. Now, like I talked about earlier, having any sort of wall denial on Clubhouse is very important because there's a lot of walls that need to stay closed, but Cade takes this to an even crazier level. Not only is Cade able to get normal walls, but he's also able to abuse his range on Clubhouse like no other map. For example, if I put a Cade Claw on this number 2 in Rafters, that Electro Claw will electrify both of the garage walls, which is very hard for any attacker to deal with. Not to mention, Cade is useful for getting the plat wall, the construction single wall, the jacuzzi wall, or even the hatches for the basement. This is another thing I want to talk about with the power of Cade, is the fact that both of the very important hatches in the basement, the kitchen hatch and the moto hatch, are trickable, meaning that you can pick the Cade Claw up and put it back down again to kill any Hibanas on the hatch, and they will not be able to, get your Cade Claw. It's really nice. You can do it by getting on this box in kitchen and kid clawing the hatch, or by coming into Moto, getting on top of this blue box, shimmying on top of the cardboard boxes, and from here, tricking the Moto hatch. Overall, I think Cade is very underutilized because most walls are trickable and he's able to abuse his range a lot on this map, making his best map Clubhouse. Now, you probably saw that coming, but a map operator combo I guarantee you will not see coming at all is the map that I've picked for the next operator, Mozzie. Mozzie specifically is used to put pests on doorways to stop people from droning certain rooms. So to select Mozzie's best map, you have to think of a map that has very little drone routes where most people have to just drone through doorways. A map that this perfectly describes that I think is a great Mozzie map, ironically, is actually Outback. I mean, just think about it from the perspective of, let's say I'm setting up this site as Mozzie. All I have to do to completely shut them out from droning the entire bomb site is put one pest here, one pest on the yellow stairs, and one pest on the game's door. And now, they literally can't drone the bomb site from anywhere else. I guess they can drone from this drone hole, but guess what? Mozzie has a fourth pest now, so they can't even do that. Most of the sites are like this, where there's barely any place that the attackers can drone from, which is why Mozzie is specifically so good on Outback. Oh my god, no. I know why my mouth hurts. My wisdom tooth is coming in. Somebody else who is very good for their specific map is actually the next operator, who is Warden. Warden is very good on small maps where you know a plant is going to go down, and you know a plant is going to go down with some smokes. A map that all of these three things are true for is actually Border. If you're defending the top floor of Border, there's a 50-50 chance that people are going to come into archives and do a smoke plant, so bringing a Warden can effectively counter this before it even starts. But that's just one site. Well, yeah, but there's actually a smoke plant that people commonly do for all the other sites here too. In Vent Workshop, you have the 50-50 chance that people are just going to come through this window and the double door to smoke plant into Vent. In Bathroom Tellers, sometimes you have the chance of people coming in through the Tellers window to go through a plant behind the refrigerator. Even on the worst site on the map, which is Customs and Supply, people will still open up the Passport Double and plant behind this desk with smokes, which Warden can counter, making, situationally speaking, Border the actual best map for Warden. Somebody else that is great at denying plants is actually Goyo. Goyo is going to be good on a close range map, on a utility heavy map, and a map where you want to delay the push because it is so small. A map that I think is perfect for this type of playstyle is Oregon. There's a lot of different places that you can put Goyo canisters on Oregon, specifically because people usually have to funnel through one doorway to be able to get into sight. Doing something like this for the one doorway into sight people go through, so you can just, you know, shoot it without actually being in danger to the door, is pretty powerful. All you gotta do is hit this, and then for 20 seconds, you don't gotta worry about them coming in through the door. You can do that for the white door, the trophy door, or if you're in the basement, the main stairs door and the freezer door. You know, if you're bad at most, you could literally just put it on random barricades around the site and slow down time for a lot of people, which you can do really on any map, but I find it's the most impactful on Oregon, which is why Oregon is Goyo's best map. Now, you may have seen that coming, and that's fair, but one I guarantee you're going to see coming is the map choice that I have for the next operator, which is Wamai. Wamai is specifically good for catching utility that you know is coming. If you know for certain that people like to do this one Capitao strat every time you go to this site, then bringing a Wamai right there is going to be pretty powerful. He's also good at protecting utility that you know is going to be there, so if you know for a fact most people play a zombie on a site, then playing a Wamai is always a safe bet. And a map that you can almost guarantee you'll see the exact same utility every single time you play it, and is naturally pretty useful on, is obviously Clubhouse. I mean, think about it. If you have an Azami and Rafters and you know every time that they play Capitao to clear that Azami, all you have to do is throw down a couple of Wamai discs, and then you will be completely fine. Because of the fact that you can pretty much just always guess where the attackers are going to be throwing utility, because this is one of the oldest ranked maps in the game, you can pretty reliably know where the most useful Wamai spots are in the game. Like this stock hatch, you know a lot of Capitao bolts like to go through, or flash grenades or smoke grenades, whatever it may be, which is why Wamai's best map is actually Clubhouse. Now, that one was pretty obvious, but one that you might not be expecting is actually the best map that I have for Oryx. Oryx is naturally going to be good on a map with a lot of hatches so that he can actually use his ability properly. He's also going to be good on a map with a lot of rooms that are really close and compact together. That way, when people hear the sound cue of you flanking, rushing, or going up a hatch, they don't exactly know which room you're doing it from. And a map that is just perfect for that type of playstyle is Consulate. I mean, just think about how many hatches are in Consulate that you can climb up as an Oryx. You have the admin hatch, You have the immediate visa hatch. You have the vending hatch. You have the hallway hatch. You have the display hatch. And you have the piano hatch. That's a lot of different flank routes that you can make, and if the attackers are hearing one of them, chances are they aren't actually going to know which one you're taking. Not to mention, a lot of these walls are soft walls, so if you wanted to dash through them, you easily could. Consulate also has a lot of long hallways, meaning that you're really going to get the most out of your Oryx dashes instead of just accidentally running into a wall like this and not really getting much use out of it. So for the amount of hatches and the map design and the amount of soft walls you can dash through, I think Oryx's best map by zero competition is Consulate. Another operator's best map that has no competition is the map that I've chosen to represent Melusi. Melusi is naturally going to specialize on maps that barely have any entrances for attackers, and very dangerous entrances at that. Which is why I have zero question that the best map for Melusi is Canal. Think about how many actual entrances the attackers can take. It's about 4, right? Well, good thing you have 4 Melusi Banshees. One, you can put for Skybridge just like this. One you can put for the breach if they ever open it. One for top red or if they're coming through the hallway right here. And then one for green stairs. With all of your entrances covered, all you simply have to do is sit in sight, wait for one of them to go off, and then swing. Because all of the entrances you can easily see from one position if you have the correct rotates to do so, it makes playing Melusi super easy, and that's just for the top floor. For the basement, it actually gets even better, because from simply one position, being the closet, you can watch 1, 2, and 3 Melusi Banshees from one position as one single defender, which is absolutely crazy. Pair that up with the fact that you have a shotgun for a site setup, which you can use to actually make holes wherever you want them, paired up with your Banshees on a site where, you know, the holes change all the time and it's really hard to attack. Melusi then becomes even more powerful than she was before, and I think on Canal especially, Melusi is just great. Someone else who is just great for their map is the map that I've chosen for Aruni. Aruni's good on close, compact maps that are defender-sided, specifically because if they don't burn the Aruni gate within the first 2 minutes, they typically won't have utility to burn them in the last few, which applies a lot of pressure to them when they're going for a last-minute execute. You also want to do Aruni on maps where there's a lot of soft destruction, as you can use your fist to open up long lines of sight, or your DMR to shoot open even longer ones, which is why the best map for Aruni is actually Skyscraper. One of the cool things about Skyscraper is there's a lot of soft walls. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different soft walls in just one of the objectives. Which means as a Aruni, there's a potential to do whatever you want, wherever you want, whenever you want, at any time, because there's just so much that you can do if you really wanted to. But also, look at the options for how they can get in the site. A doorway, another doorway, and a window. These are all places that people love to commonly grenade through as well, which is why putting Aruni gates here is super powerful. One thing that sucks about defending the site is you never know if they're going to come up the house stairs or through shrine, but putting in a Aruni gate here allows you to get a sound cue as to where and when they're doing it, so you never even have to peek it. The same can be said for this doorway and the window I talked about earlier, making Aruni not only good for catching utility and giving damage to any attackers, but also good for just giving a sound cue. None of that would be possible though if all the attackers didn't have to funnel in through 1 or 2 doorways for every single site on this map, which is why for this map specifically, Aruni is amazing. An operator that just got better this season though was actually Thunderbird. With her passive healing and her ability to have soft destruction plus a deployable shield, she needs to be on a map that allows her to do all of the things I just said in abundance. And a map where deployable shields are important, site setup is important, and holding your position, which is great when you have healing, is also important, is Chalet. Like I said, on Chalet, having deployable shields is super important. Whether it be on blue stairs to watch your Ivy Hall, on mezzanine to watch your slant window, in piano to watch your Ivy double, or anywhere downstairs and in between, having deployable shields is great, and Thunderbird brings one. Also, having site setup is great, and on a site like Bar, where there's all of these walls that you need to get open with rotates and feet holes, Thunderbird bringing a shotgun is pretty nice. One thing also that Chalet requires is that you hold your position for as long as possible, and when you have healing right next to you that you can do that with, it becomes a lot easier to do what I just said. A really specific strat that I want to talk about with Thunderbird though is playing inside of what's known as Dark Corner. Playing in dark corner is huge, because if you sit here, people can't shoot you from the double window or the single window, effectively allowing you to hold library until somebody hops in the window and risks dying to the hatch or to anybody else in library. It's a very powerful position to hold. However, people have adapted by shooting Capitao bolts at this beam to Capitao fire people who sit in here. If you want to counter this, all you have to do is put 3 Kona stations in the corner with you, one right here, and one right here, and you essentially counter the Capitao strat by out-healing the fire around you, making it a lot easier to sit in this corner, which is why I think, and among other reasons, that Thunderbird's best map is actually Chalet. Now, I honestly think that Thunderbird's best map is Chalet because of just, lack of other strats for other maps. The same exact thing can be said for the next operator, which is Thorn. Thorn is a pretty bad operator, but there's one map where she kind of has some okay strats that might make her worth running, and that, again, is Chalet. There's some, spots on this map where throwing a Thorn device isn't actually that bad, like behind the trash can for the default plant, or maybe like above the blue stairs right here. So, there's cool Thorn trap placement. Also, if you have a deployable shield, again, this is a great deployable shield map. You can also hide these things in plants of... You can also hide these things in top mez whenever they come up here, and the second you hear these things being activated, you just swing and they either die to you or they die to the Thorn traps, effectively giving you a free kill. But beyond that, Thorn isn't really useful on this map, or honestly, any other map. But I do think her best map is Chalet for the reasons I've stated earlier. Now, our next operator doesn't suffer from the same fate, because our next operator is the best defender in the game and can honestly be played on any map, and that is Azami. Now, it's really difficult selecting the best map for Azami because Azami, again, you can play on every single map. But a way that I like to think of Azami is essentially just deployable shields that you can throw anywhere. And what's a map where having deployable shields is the most powerful? That, of course, is Chalet again. Now, if you're not an idiot and accidentally throw an Azami barricade on a soft wall like I just did here, Azami is actually a pretty great operator. Anywhere that you want a deployable shield to go, like one facing the slant wall here, you can essentially makeshift by throwing a barricade somewhere on, like, let's say a dresser right here instead. It's also good by putting on little ledges like this, which can block both your door and your window. And there's even Kibas like this one that allow you to get tight pixel angles onto sight doors like this. Azami also brings impacts, and if you want to use an impact to trick the wall right here on the basement, you're easily able to do so by getting any thermites or aces off the right side of the wall. Azami's actually able to Azami off a lot of the staircases on this map as well, paired up with barbed wire on the staircase, which can essentially lock down a staircase from being pushed, which is why I think of all the maps in this entire game, Chalet is actually the best map for Azami. Although, like I said earlier, she can be used on pretty much any map you bring her to. Somebody else who I do not think actually has that same sentiment is the next defender on this list, which is Solus. Solus specializes in maps where people can hide drones very well. Naturally, these maps are more open-ended maps where drones have more hiding spots, and I think you all know where I'm going with this. That would make Solus's best map is, of course, Bank. Again, lobby alone, there's like 70 different places that drones can hide, so having a Solus scanner to quickly look around to see where the drones are is pretty nice. The same thing for stock, for drones hidden in square, any drones hidden in open area at the start of the round, drones hidden in CC, drones hidden in the basement, drones hidden in garage, you get the idea. There's a lot of places on this map that drones will hide, so being able to play Solus and find them is pretty cool. Now, just like Azami, this next operator is debatably one of the best in the game, so it's hard to pick a specific map where Fenrir shines. But I think Fenrir is very similar to another operator, namely Melusi, in where the less entrances attackers have to sight, the more valuable he becomes, which is why I think, just like Melusi, Fenrir's best map is Canal. There's so many places, again, that you can throw Fenrir mines just like Melusi mines, but because you can actually throw Fenrir mines and they're smaller, there's actually more room to be able to use Fenrir mines. For example, if you break this window right here, and you throw a Fenrir mine in the windowsill, activate your Fenrir mine and re-barricade the barricade, then slightly break open this portion of the barricade, now you have an active working Fenrir mine that's in a window that attackers will never expect to be there. Even if they were to look over here and shoot it, you'd have swung them by the door or by Skybridge by now that it wouldn't have mattered, making this never get found. And there's plenty of these across the map, considering that this map has more windows than any other map in the entire game. Also, around the map, you have a lot of these vent contraptions where there's wiring and cabinets everywhere that you can easily hide mines in. Not that you'd ever put one here, but you get the idea. You can just hide Fenrir mines in all sorts of nooks and crannies in this map, which is why I think he's honestly best on this map, even like right here, no one is finding that Fenrir mine. Are you kidding? They're gonna walk in here and look down there. They'll even probably look on the staircase. They're never even looking. I didn't even know there was a ledge like this up here until just now making this video. So like, dude, there's just so many places on this map specifically that Fenrir is just insane on, man. It's crazy. Wait, is this tech? Yo, let me know in the comments if this is tech. This might be tech, chat. Hold on. Something else that's tech is using Tubarão on the right maps. Tubarão's best map is obviously a map where a lot of walls need to stay closed, so obviously Tubarão's best map, the map of Clubhouse. Tubarão specifically is better paired up with a Cade. If you know for a fact they're going to EMP a wall and Bandit's going to have a very tough time tricking a wall due to people being below or people being on a window, then bringing a Tubarão to buy your team 12 seconds to go deal with the people on the window or deal with the people below so that your Bandit can trick it is pretty nice. And there's a lot of examples like that on this map where it can be dangerous to trick some of these walls, like this wall, or the jacuzzi wall if, you know, this door and window are open. And with each canister lasting about 12 seconds each, you have a lot of time to deal with threats so that your people can trick the wall, or at least waste time, because some of these walls are just going to get open. That's how hard it is to defend, so being at least able to waste a good 36 seconds off the clock is pretty nice. But finally, let's move on to the second to last defender in this video, which is the defending recruit Sentry. Sentry is honestly a pretty bad defender, so trying to find a map where he is good is pretty difficult. But there's one map in particular that secondary utility is the most powerful on, considering just the map's structure. And that is Oregon. The reason I think that Oregon is actually Sentry's best map is because when it comes to my mind immediately, like a map where I have a bunch of Sentry strats on, Oregon's actually the first. First of all, you need some sort of information on White Stairs. If you don't have it, it can actually cost you the round. So being able to bring an operator that brings not only barbed wire, but a secondary piece of utility too is cool, because you can bring barbed wire for any info, whether it be on the staircase or, you know, maybe on this door. And then you can also bring like a deployable shield to watch that door and play off of that info, or maybe a nitro cell to play off the info, or maybe you can bring 2 barbed wire and 2 proximity alarms and cover every single entrance to the site with utility, or maybe like a BP and a nitro below with some wood. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of options, and that's just for the top floor. For the bottom floor, if you need an operator with a deployable shield but nobody else is bringing one, and nobody else is also bringing anything to slow a shield down like a nitro or barbed wire, then you can actually bring both of those and sit and hold elbow solo as one player. So for an operator that's pretty bad, the only map that he has some actually pretty good strats on is Oregon, which is why I think it's his best map. Now finally, let's move on to the last defender in this video and in the game, and that is Skopos. Skopos is still relatively new, so pinpointing down a map that they are the best at is pretty hard, and honestly, I might be a little inaccurate, but from my personal experience and from professional players that I've watched and spoken to, the best map for Skopos, and that is actually Clubhouse. And it's for one very specific strat that you might already know about, and that is actually the strip club strat. The point of holding strip club as a roamer is to kind of let them take space above and start getting hatches open, and then slowly you start shooting and making your presence known and annoying people so that they have to come waste about a minute of time clearing you out of strip club. However, because there's no route from strip club back to site anywhere, this is a death spot, which means all you're going to do is waste as much time as possible and get as many kills as possible before you eventually die. But there's one operator that can actually have a second life, which of course is Skopos. If you can apply all this pressure and waste all this time, and the second that they actually start being able to clear you and right before you're about to die, you can just switch bodies, then you've essentially wasted a bunch of time, a bunch of bodies, and a bunch of resources for the cost of really nothing, because you cut out of there really, really quickly. There's not only that, but you can do that on places like dirt in the basement. You can do that in rafters for the basement or oil pit for upstairs. If you're playing in CC and cash, you can do that in Logi or in gym. There's just so many places where you can just sit and be an annoyance, and the second that you need to come back to site, you can just make your way and teleport the second that you want to, which is why I think Skopos' best map is actually Clubhouse. But with that out of the way, that is it for today's video. My name's Alka. Check out this next video, and I hope to see you there.